Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the owner and founder of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about what your fearful avoidant partner needs you to know. And what they want you to hear. So this is for the partner of fearful avoidance, although I'm sure fearful avoidance will lovingly and happily be happy to see this video as well. So before I get into the content for today, I want to make a really exciting announcement. After a lot of brainstorming and thinking about this and planning this out, I've decided that when we launch the online version of the Personal Development School, which means like if you're watching this video, you will be able to have access to the online Personal Development School launch because it's online, it's accessible to anybody, anywhere in the world, which is October 2nd, by the way. When we launch, I am going to do 2 live calls a week with all members. So they're basically going to be like group sort of coaching calls. So you can actually come in and you can type your questions live and you can go through and post things and I'll get to interact with you. And if you can't make the webinars live, you're going to be able to post your questions ahead of time for them on the forum. I'm going to be checking the questions there. So with the membership, it's $49 a month US. With the membership, you're going to get 2 calls a week, so 8 calls a month. And you are also going to get access to our library of courses. So we're going to have our first 8 courses at launch, and then we're going to be launching 3 to 5 every single consecutive month of new ones. Our first 8 courses are Fearful Avoidant Reprogramming course, Anxious Attachment Style Reprogramming course, Dismissive Avoidant Attachment Style Reprogramming course, Conflict Resolution and Speaking Up, Reprogramming Chronic Guilt and Shame, Emotional Mastery and Belief Reprogramming course. This is one of my favorites to record. I love this one. Your subconscious blueprint of your mind, understanding your needs and how to communicate them effectively with others. Awesome course. Self-esteem and self-confidence course. And then lastly, procrastination and self-sabotage course. So we have a bonus course in there. So those are going to be our first set. So come sign up. If you haven't already, all you have to do is literally fill out the survey below, and that's going to reserve your $49 membership fee with the live coaching calls. So if you fill out the link that's literally in the description below, it's going to ask you like a survey about like what your course interests are. It's going to help us launch like the order of our next courses after this first batch. But just if you fill that out, then you are able to also make sure you receive the bonus offer of the 8 calls a month live. So I'm just so excited for this to be like up and running online and fully accessible because like, oh my gosh. And I'm so excited to connect with everybody who's been waiting. So many people have emailed me and asked, and I am super excited about it. So let me get into this video for today. So number 1, fearful avoidants are often one of the most misunderstood attachment styles. So if you're the partner of the fearful avoidant, you need to know this. And the fearful avoidant can appear in many different ways. Often fearful avoidants will tell me like they want their partner to know that they're actually quite normal when they're out of a relationship, but it's only when they get into the romantic relationship that their life seems to be in chaos and seems to become quite challenging in their communication. And for fearful avoidants, relationships are really hard and they're seriously doing their best. It's so difficult for them. They feel so much and they register so much. They're so hypervigilant and they get hurt very easily because they're quite sensitive souls deep down. And so, they want you to know that they're trying really hard and they're trying so hard to predict your needs and be aware of everything. And it can cause them pain when they assume that like, hey, I'm basically a mind reader, not actually, but I can predict your needs, 5 miles ahead and a year in advance. And they're so good at reading people because they're so hypervigilant and they're so good at predicting what other people need from them that it often causes them pain when they expect, because we all project from our perception naturally. So they expect that other people are like that too. And if you're not able to meet their needs way in advance and realize what they are way in advance, it's registered for them oftentimes as a rejection, which it's not. And it's actually up to the fearful avoidant to be accountable to recognize that, and to be able to see that not everybody's necessarily as aware of human behavior and micro expressions and body language changes and all that kind of stuff as they are, and that's okay. Relationships don't require that for them to be happy. So they hunger for love. Fearful avoidants hunger for love, even when they push you away. So a lot of times I see fearful avoidants pushing away their partners, and usually in those moments in an argument where they're pushing away, really it's because they're just scared and there's so much pain being brought up. And remember, the brain is wired to avoid pain. So when they're in pain, and they're in a lot of pain usually, it's the pain they're trying to escape, not you they're trying to escape. And if they threaten to leave during really painful times in a relationship, during really hard moments, they don't mean it. They're just very triggered and very afraid. If a fearful avoidant wants to leave a relationship, they're going to leave the relationship not in the heat of the moment, not over a fight. They're going to leave a relationship when the fight's over, and that's when it's going to be, real and certain. So if you're getting a fearful avoidant threatening to leave in the heat of an argument, it's really not, it's not that serious for them. It's not, the anger is serious, the pain is serious, all, the fight will be serious, of course, and it's definitely really painful and not okay to hear that as a partner. But it's their anger speaking, it's not their truth. So that's a really important topic I could dive into, because I see this a lot in the fearful avoidant dynamic, but it's important to note. Fearful avoidant actually does need time alone, even though they often don't realize it when they're in a romantic relationship, because they can easily become so enmeshed again. And the fearful avoidant also wants you to know they don't want to be so harsh with their words. They often don't realize how much it's hurting when they tend to lash out through their words in the heat of a moment as well. And again, usually what's happening is like the subconscious mind stores all memories ever, and it stores them with all of the emotion intact. So if I were to, if somebody was in a state of hypnosis, they could pull up all sorts of interesting memories from childhood at very young ages, and they're going to remember all the feelings associated with that memory. Those feelings, those emotional states in the memory are very much intact. They're alive and well. And so when we're triggered as human beings, but obviously this applies especially to the fearful avoidant, they're not just experiencing the emotion of the moments that you're maybe in a fight or an argument or something hurt them. They're experiencing this moment plus all of the stored subconscious emotion from all those painful memories and triggering events that are now flooding to the surface. And so it's like this emotional residue, which can be really overwhelming for most fearful avoidants. So they really want to feel safe in a relationship, but oftentimes they don't even really know what a healthy relationship or a loving relationship should look like. So it's really confusing for them. And often their picture is just the picture of, whatever the relationship was before, or whatever they saw growing up, or whatever messaging they're getting from the media. It tends to be their expectation sometimes, or not the media, but like movies, stuff like that. So they don't really know what love is sometimes. And this isn't all fearful avoidance, but when you talk to a lot of them, when I talk to a lot of them, and having been one myself and rewired my attachment style very deeply, that's what I'll hear often is things like, I don't really know what love is, or what a healthy relationship is supposed to be like. And for the fearful avoidant, it's also very hard to trust. And it's not because you're untrustworthy necessarily. You might be, but it's not because, you're a bad person or you're untrustworthy. It's because at some point, somewhere in their life, often something broke the fearful avoidant's trust enough that they just have a really hard time even understanding how to trust. Imagine if, let's say it's the parents, and it's usually the parents for the fearful avoidant, or it's a really painful, tumultuous adult romantic relationship that takes somebody who may not have been a fearful avoidant and creates that attachment dynamic within them in relationship to romantic relationships specifically. But at some point, if trust is broken so much, and let's say it's by the parents, it's like for the fearful avoidant, it's like, well, if I couldn't trust the two people who are supposed to love me unconditionally, how can I trust strangers, or how can I trust people that come into my life? Like it becomes a very daunting task for the fearful avoidant. So if you're the fearful avoidant watching this, please check out my video about trust. It's a great way to get started. And I have a course coming out on this too, in the personal development school in the future. So here's another thing for the fearful avoidant. When they swing between being anxious and becoming avoidant, they often think the relationship must be ending, because they're usually a little more connected to what it means to be anxious, or at least that's not true. They're not connected more to what it means to be anxious. Their assumption about what a relationship should look like when it's in a good or healthy state is the assumption from the anxious side of their attachment style the vast majority of the time. Okay? I know that's sort of hard to unpack, but it's a really powerful statement. So it really means that, like, when they're in their anxious state, their assumptions for what love is usually this enmeshed state. So it's like that everybody takes care of each other's feelings and needs, and there's so much passion, and it's all these peak moments of closeness, and we shouldn't be apart. And so when they start becoming avoidant because they're hurt or triggered or pushed away, automatically they're thinking like, oh, all my expectations are shattered. They start operating from the avoidant side of their attachment style. And then they tend to pull back and get very doubtful about the relationship. And it's actually them misunderstanding that they're shifting between the anxious part of themselves and the avoidant part of themselves on the attachment spectrum, so to speak. So, so they're afraid. They're really afraid. And it's more confusing for the anxious avoidant or the fearful avoidant than it is for the average attachment style, even when other attachment styles can be really afraid and confused for different reasons as well. For the fearful avoidant, they're often in like a perpetual state of confusion. It's like this push-pull, and it's very difficult for them to feel like they can just settle into a relationship. And it's not because of you, it's because of wounds that they're carrying. They often want you to hug them after a fight, and they really want to make peace after a fight, even if they don't seem like it. They might try to push you away and pretend like they're pushing you away after a fight. They really want you to hug them and to let them know you care. And even if they take a moment to warm back up a little bit, they really are seeking that, and they will warm back up. They really want you to know that they can't help that they notice everything. Hypervigilance is an adaptation our subconscious mind makes when we go through painful or traumatic instances. It's like we go into this sort of fight or flight mode, and then it's like PTSD type of it's really not necessarily PTSD, so I should be careful about saying that, but hypervigilance is just an adaptation to extreme circumstances around stress. So when the fearful avoidant is so hypervigilant, it's because they came from a really stressful time in some chapter of their life. And now they start to pick up on everything. And they pick up on micro expressions and body language and tone of voice. And they can't help that they notice all of it. And they often give it meaning without wanting to. Usually it's like, oh, if you pull back, or you're short, or you're cold on the phone, or, the fearful avoidance, like, oh, you're pulling away or leaving, or, oh, there must be something else in the relationship. You must be with somebody else. They can have all these different thoughts, and they're going to be very unique to each fearful avoidant, what those thoughts are, unique to that fearful avoidance programming and fears and core wounds. But what's really happening is they pick up on so much, it's hard for them not to register little changes or shifts in patterns of behavior, and they often give it meaning, and then they're often carrying a bigger emotional load in relationships because they have so many stored perceptions about what your actions and behaviors mean, because their subconscious mind is doing this as sort of a survival mechanism that's been programmed in from a really hard period in time. So they can't help that they're like that. And honestly, when you do rewiring in your attachment style, the hypervigilance will stay. You'll just learn how to question the meaning around things if you're the fearful avoidant, and how to not personalize things through a set of tools that I'll share. Anyways, they also believe they have to earn your love, and this is exhausting. The fearful avoidant often feels like they have to constantly prove their worth, or take care of somebody's needs, or show up 110% and predict your needs, and then they unconsciously expect the same because they think that's what love is on some level. So for the fearful avoidant partner, or that's how they know how to navigate relationships, let's just say that. So for the fearful avoidant partner, here are some things that you can do. And again, this isn't your responsibility. This is nobody's responsibility to caretake, to fix, to save. But you can still show up for your partner, and you can learn, and you can grow together, and you can connect, and you can, share this information and with them, or the fearful avoidant can share it. You can share it with your partner, whichever way it goes, for whoever is watching this. But it just the key part here is that the person who's carrying some of the wounds, and if they're bringing them into the relationship, you just have to be accountable and do the work. Okay, so number one, if you're the partner of a fearful avoidant, it is so amazing and helpful if you can overshare when you have the chance. So if there's a little shift in a pattern of behavior or a change, or you do something and you catch the fearful avoidant, like noticing it, or I guess like really it would have to be another fearful avoidant to notice that small of a thing probably. But if you catch the fearful avoidant being funny, or being a little bit short or pulling back, just explain, like, or if they ask something and they're, questioning a little bit, just feel free to overshare details. You won't have to do it forever. It's just until the fearful avoidance starts to build trust, because a lot of times they're looking for incongruencies. Their mind is wired that way a little bit. So if you do something strange or out of a pattern and you notice it, or you notice that they're acting funny too, just feel free to overshare, over-explain. That is a huge deal and a very helpful thing for the vast majority of fearful avoidant attachment style individuals. It just like makes them find peace again. And again, there's still work that they have to be doing on their reprogramming and their questioning of the meaning that they're giving to things, but it's a really powerful point. Number two, see them, notice small things about them. If you can notice small things about them and compliment them on like seemingly irrelevant details or minute details of their life, they will feel seen, they'll feel heard, they'll feel understood. It's really powerful for them to feel like they matter, because a lot of their programming is about like, I have to earn my worth, I have to earn love, I have to overcompensate in my life, I have to be as close to perfect as possible to be worthy of receiving any love. And so when you just notice like human things, it's like, oh, you are worthy. That's the messaging they're getting. And that's a really powerful connector for a lot of fearful avoidance. Remind them to take space, and that not everybody is a mind reader like them. And I use the term mind reader as a joke, but like not everybody's so attuned to incongruencies and patterns and behaviors. So remind them to take space. They do need time alone. Remind them of that sometimes. And ask them what their feelings and needs are. They struggle to be vulnerable and express their feelings and needs. So if you're the partner of a fearful avoidant, ask them to express their feelings and needs. Very important. Okay, so I'll leave it at that for now. I have so many more tools in our attachment style reprogramming courses, but this is a great place to start. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks for connecting, and thank you for the beautiful and frigging loving comments I get on these videos. Like, what a blessing to read them and just be like, wow. Like, it's just wonderful to see so many people working on themselves, and it's wonderful to feel like I get to teach, which I absolutely love, and that it's like really providing service for other people. It's like the most rewarding thing. I have a really high need for contribution. So anyways, thank you so much for watching.